Last year, our government entered into, struck an agreement, an arrangement with the Kuwaiti government because unfortunately what happened to Villavende is not the first. What is the nature of that agreement?
The bilateral labor agreement was signed in 2018. And if you look at it, the provisions are really rights-driven, rights-based. Hindi pwedeng kunin ang cellphone. The passport should always be with the worker. Adequate food, adequate rest. Salary should be paid on time. Andun lahat eh. If you look at it, if only it was implemented. Unfortunately, there has been some resistance on the Kuwait side in incorporating these provisions of the BLA into the labor contract. Kaya we have a BLA that few employers know about because in the contracts that they sign, the provisions are not there.
I see.
Pero it's up to the recruiter, di ba? It's up to the recruiter to tell the employer, your country has disagreement with us, and it has to be included in the contract. Hindi ba beholden yung recruiter to include it in an employment contract?
Their government would have to instruct all their recruitment agencies and all all Kuwaiti employers that we have signed this agreement. This obligation now also falls on your shoulders.
So was there a rule na gano'n na every recruiter who gets workers from the Philippines must include in the work contract this agreement between Kuwait and the Philippines? Was there that regulation?
Yeah, ang position kasi ng Kuwait government, one contract for all labor sending countries. So even if we have this bilateral labor agreement, parang sinasabi nila, no, we can't give you a separate contract just for the Philippines because yun yung position ng Kuwait government.
So what was the
agreement? Between the Philippine government and the Kuwaiti government.
Yes.
And on their part, the Kuwaiti government in the agreement was committed to implement all these steps. The government of Kuwait should ensure that the passports are kept by the employees. The Kuwaiti government should ensure that they have access to their cell phones and all that. So it's basically government to government.
Yes.
It's not employee to government.
That's true.
So yung nasa kanila yung onus.
But I mean, it's sa kanila yung onus na there's always that presumption of good faith, di ba? When you sign with especially an ally, you would, and a friend, so you would consider na sila na magbahala sa constituents nila, sa stakeholders nila. I think kung may pagkukulang man, nandun yun eh.
So yung sa bilateral agreement natin, we did not ask Kuwait specifically na please include this naman in the contracts with the
I think the Philippine side did ask Kuwait.
I think what we're trying to reconcile is at least now, what we're hearing is on the one hand, meron tayong agreement with explicit lines, explicit agreements, not even demands, no? Pinagkaisahan na to that we will do this. And then on the other hand, now we're also hearing from you explaining na hindi kasi at the same time that we struck that agreement, Kuwait is essentially saying we cannot actually have a special agreement with you. Is that correct?
They're saying that we have this agreement, but yung contract, it's still
it's a private thing.
I'm outside government na, no. I used to be with government, so I really don't know how Kuwait phrased their
argument,
hesitation.
Yeah. So what you're essentially saying is the agreement, the government-to-government agreement, is separate from the mechanism or mechanisms of actually making sure this happens. At dyan tayo ngayon nagkakagulo.
Yun yung weakness na ano ba yung ultimate accountability tool? Morally and legally. It is always the contract. Because dun sa contract, nakapirma yung worker, nakapirma yung employer, nakapirma yung agencies. And then yung kopya natin is verified by the labor attaché and approved by the POEA. So sa atin, set na yan, cast na in stone yan eh. Yung dun sa Kuwait side, kung wala yung mga nakalagay na yung cellphone has to be constant communication with the family and all that, kung wala yun sa contract, yung employer can always say na Yeah, but it's not in the contract that I signed.
And so when it comes down to the individual, in the case of Villavende, for example, that was exactly the situation she found herself in again?
Alam mo, you cannot legislate, you cannot, I mean, you, if you're dealing with an employer who is like the twin of Satan, then whatever legal obstacles or legal protective mechanisms you have in place, ganun siya eh. And I think yung screening ng employers is very important. Unfortunately, we are deploying more than we can actually monitor and screen.
What we're asking is, yung mga contracts in Kuwait, they are different for every employer. Is that what you're saying? Because these are private contracts. Are they different for every recruiter and for every employer?
No, I think they are, yun nga yung point ng Kuwait, na one contract lang for, regardless
For
kung may
all-
bilateral labor agreement
all
ka.
migrant workers. So kung may dinagdag tayo, hindi
Regardless
nila
of
pwede
nationality.
So in other words, I'm an OFW. I have a contract here, kampante ako, that I have the backing as well as the reassurances, even the instructions and guidance of my government, and then my agency, and so on. Then when I get there, essentially the employer will say, ano yan, wala naman yan sa usapan natin, ito ang kontrata natin.
They can always say that kasi syempre ang magre-refer sila doon sa contract, no? Yun nga yung kahalagahan noon na yung kaya ang position ng Philippine government, kung ano yung napirmahan noon, ilagay nyo sa contract.
Pero there are things that can be outside a contract naman din, di ba? I mean, policies, rules, and regulations can be outside of a contract between two private individuals. I mean, I see it in the sense that, yes, you can have an employer-employee relationship, but still you have a labor code, di ba? Which could be enforced in the Philippines. In the same way, I'm asking about in Kuwait, we have an agreement with the Kuwaiti government for them to enforce and implement these safeguards. Even if it's outside the contract, shouldn't the Kuwaiti government be expected to enforce
Yeah, of course. There's no
these
excuse.
provisions?
There's no excuse for not honoring the obligations of the first party and the second party under that agreement. But then, as in all diplomatic situations, Kuwait will always say na we acted in good faith. We are sorry that this happened.
Yeah.